Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Insider, brought to you, and this may come as a surprise, by Vanishing Inc. My guest today is proper famous, not just magician famous, actually famous. He's an actor, comedian, writer, he plays the violin, and he was the voice of Piglet in Christopher Robin. You may have seen him recently in a full performance video of Christian Grace's astonishing Enigma. Oh, yeah, and he was Nathan Shelley in Ted Lasso. He's also a magician. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Nick Mohammed. Nick, how are you this afternoon?
Oh, thank you, Damon. I'm very, very well. Thank you for that very kind intro. And yeah, I don't know. We were just saying before we press record, but I don't think I am famous. I'm certainly not magician famous by any means.
Don't people come up to you in
You're very
Sainsbury's
kind.
and say, "Oh, aren't you that bloke off Ted Lasso?"
They do, yeah, but they would never say, "Show me a trick," which I think famous magicians probably get a lot more.
What's your magic origin story? You have 26 seconds.
Very similar to lots of others, I'm sure. Grew up in the 80s, pulled down this magic set, completely hooked, adored it, consumed it, joined the Northern Magic Circle junior section when I was about 13, 14. Stuck with that, carried on with that, joined Bradford Magic Circle, and then eventually moved to London after I finished university and joined the Magic Circle after that. And so that is pretty much my origin story.
And that was almost bang on 26 seconds. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's talk about magic. You've performed magic quite a few times on TV, on 8 out of 10 Cats, etc., where you memorise the Wagamama menu, deck of cards, solve Rubik's Cubes and more, and your character, Mr. Swallow, also performs magic. How did you get the idea to weave your love of magic into, and I use the term lightly, your day job?
Yeah, no, you're right to use it lightly. I think actually that I really wanted to get into comedy. I was doing magic. I was working a lot as a magician. You know, as soon as I sort of hit sort of 16, I would do kind of restaurants and hotels and stuff, and doing various sort of probably quite bad table hopping magic. I and and then as a student, I would use it to kind of do magic to earn money and kind of get access to events and stuff. But I was getting into comedy around that time, and the magic was maybe had sort of jokes in, but it wasn't particularly funny or anything. But I remember trying to sort of get into comedy, and the way that I found was easiest to do that was to kind of sort of have sort of magic in the back pocket a little bit. So I would sort of have a few kind of tricks in my kind of comedy stuff because I sort of knew that I could fall back on them. And then as I guess improved a little bit or got a little bit more confident with the comedy, the kind of the tricks sort of filtered out. And then oddly, and then I was just doing straight comedy and albeit character comedy. And then with Mr. Swallow, I sort of realised that actually I could because I could do the magic. I sort of thought, wouldn't it be fun and interesting if actually he just sort of did the odd trick, and it actually came in relatively recently. Him doing kind of magic things or memory things or whatever they're classed as. I mean, to me, undoubtedly magic, stuff, but I think maybe the general public, sadly for me, I do have a good memory. And
Talking of the general public, as I was researching this, I found a clip on YouTube from 8 out of 10 Cats, and it's from Lincoln Trewethy, and they say, "He has a degree in astrophysics. His math and memory skills are legit. He's incredibly impressive." Do you feel a bit naughty that you tricked him, or are you secretly chuffed?
No, I love it. No, I'm not even secretly pleased. I'm like openly pleased by that. I have no guilt. Yeah, there's no guilt in there at all. I find it, the only thing I would say that occasionally makes me feel not necessarily guilty, but it's just impractical, is that, the producers on even 8 out of 10 Cats, this countdown, don't even know how that stuff's done. So they all think it's legit. But I love all that sort of like cloak and not cloak and daggers or smoke and mirrors. I guess smoke and mirrors,
Smoke and daggers with
but
mirrors.
It does sometimes mean it's really impractical. I mean, the things that are obviously tricks, like the chop cup, and I think I do a 3-card trick at some point on maybe that particular episode. Actually, they all do know that they're tricks, and we talk about camera angle and stuff like that a little bit, but the memory stuff they think was legit. So it's,
Oh, it's so cool. And
I've
it's really
once been
cool.
caught out when I.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Damien. Sorry. I was just going to say I've only once, other than that, been caught out when I went to a casting for I can't remember what it was now, but it was a casting and they had clearly already, I think, cast the part that I was going for. So I kind of arrived and you're like, oh yeah, and I did it, and they're like, do you mind like actually learning this other part? If you just sort of go out, and the producer's like, "Oh no, I saw Nick's show. He can sort of he can just look at it, and then he'll be able to know it. He doesn't need any time to learn it." And I just had to sort of like, "Oh yeah, no, but actually, maybe just like have a little bit of time to think about the character." I had to fumble some kind of reason why I needed the same amount of time as a real human being to learn a script.
But it's also cool doing magic with your kid. My daughter's 10 and into magic, and I do a family show with her, scripted double
Right.
act thing, and I think it's really
Great.
cool doing magic with your kid. Um, do you
Yeah,
also
we loved
perform?
it. Like we tried not to sort of obviously force him into it, but it's that sort of nature nurturing, isn't it? He's surrounded by, you know, props and tricks and decks of cards and all stuff that I'm messing around with, and they'll come and see my shows, so they just naturally sort of think it's quite normal and quite fun, and they obviously enjoy it. So whilst he enjoys it, I'm happy to indulge it.
Absolutely. Do you also perform in social settings? Are you sat there with a deck of cards on whatever movie set or TV set you're doing?
No, I don't actually. No, and I don't think many people really know that I do. Like when I'm acting. Some kind of comedy contemporaries who I know from doing live comedy and live stuff. They'll know, and maybe very occasionally, but not hardly ever. The only time, weirdly, was Jason Sudeikis is a huge magic fan and brilliant magician, hobbyist, but he, and will geek out about magic a lot, and we would particularly on series one of Ted Lasso and a bit more on season three. Season two was very COVIDy, so we weren't allowed any kind of sort of interaction other than when we were literally filming takes, and then it was masks and set apart. And so, but we would do magic, but really just for each other. We didn't really let it branch out to anyone else. And yeah, so I don't really. I think a younger version of me might have inflicted it on people, but no, I don't know. Maybe I should do. I mean, I love it, and I should say I love magic. Like it is my heart and soul. It's my first love. I got into it from such a young age, from literally the age of 4, when the Paul Lennon Smoke Show was still on, on telly, and I still love it. I still buy silly amounts of books that I'll probably never get around to reading. I don't buy so many tricks, but I do buy a lot of books because I just love them and I love to have them. And I'm a real sucker for it. Something is billed as a limited release. And I'm like, yeah. And Vanishing is very good at knowing what I like. So whatever your algorithm is, you're doing very well. But so I love it, and maybe I should do it more. But I'm happy just it being for me and occasionally for Mr. Swallow.
Sure, sure. Now, probably absolutely none of the American listeners to this will have heard of Murder in Successville, which is a shame because it was amazing. But in series 1, episode 2, you did a cameo and did something that probably no one's ever done before. Can you remember who you were playing in that?
I remember I was playing Dynamo in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that. And then weirdly, so I was at Mathematics Circle with
That's
Steve,
where I was. Yeah.
yeah, so we had known each other since we were like, what, 14, 15. And bless him, I had a very small part to play in his most recent show because we bumped into each other after years of not really seeing much of each other at the London Magic Convention. And he just wanted someone to kind of cast an eye over some of the scripted stuff and just to talk about his new show. And it was such a joy getting to kind of reconnect with him again, actually, because we've not properly seen each other, for many, many years. But yeah, I did get to play him. But I remember probably about a year after that, but we were sort of passing in the street and he was at a wedding or something like that. And he was like, oh, hey, Dynamo. Dynamo. He was calling me Dynamo. It was just quite funny that he was sort of referring because it had just been on a life, so I did. But yeah, I remember I got to wear blue contact lenses first.
Now, you mentioned at the top of the show, Mr. Swallow, this is a character act that debuted some time ago at Edinburgh, and you performed many different full shows, including, weirdly, one about Dracula the musical. Can you explain the character for the uninitiated?
Absolutely. So, well, going way back, the character is really, an impersonation of a teacher that I had when I was at school. She taught us English, GCSE, so I would have been like, 14, 15 at the time. And, that is why I think, it's quite camp in a sense that it's not, I mean, there's no innuendo in it at all, but it's camp in that, it's quite eminent, but it's only because, I'm sort of being her when I do it. I don't really reckon it's the fact that it's based on a woman in the set. But yeah, so it's just, and she just had this attitude about it that she just sort of always annoyed with it, and so she would always just sort of have a go at us. She really unnecessarily. She would always act as if she'd been heckled, but it was just, and she would often use the classroom as just a. I think she's quite a sort of frustrated performer in her own right, maybe. She sort of used the classroom to sort of spout all kinds of sort of ideas and get a lot of things off her chest. And she was, I mean, brilliant, but sort of nuts. And I just found her really, really inspiring, funny, and I just, anyway, and I do that voice just sort of just, do an impression of her to make my friends laugh. And then when I started doing sketch comedy, I guess, at university, occasionally I just play a character that would talk a bit like, and it made, for me, it just sort of made things a little bit funnier. And then I started doing that. I mean, it wasn't even really a fully formed character at that point at the Edinburgh Fringe and stuff. It was sort of still probably an accent with some mannerisms. But having now done it for, God knows, 15 years or whatever, it has now just become sort of the kind of go-to. If I step on stage, I am just that person. And what's quite nice about Mr. Swallow is that he is a frustrated performer. So he is a frustrated performer, and he sort of tries his hand at absolutely anything and everything, with varying degrees of success. But that's why it kind of made sense that, he can try his hand at magic even if he's bad at it and doesn't really know how it works, or he can try his hand at musical theatre, or he can do a lecture about anger management or how to improve your memory or anything. And it sort of doesn't matter if he sort of reinvents himself every year, because that's sort of part of the joy of who he is. Like, he's sort of an impresario. Like, he's just sort of someone like a master, literally, jack of all trades, master of none. And so, that is the sort of the origins of the character. And now it's become very tongue in cheek, and occasionally, there's a very sort of blurred line between where it's sort of me just getting to sort of have fun and do stuff on stage that I wouldn't possibly get away with doing just as if it was me, or would just be more difficult to do if it was just me, or more make it more exposing or more vulnerable. Whereas actually, when I'm doing it through the guise of Mr. Swallow, I feel a lot freer, and it's like wearing a mask, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's an excuse, there's a freedom, isn't there, when it's a character act?
Yeah, and he's quite outspoken. I mean, not that none of it's edgy particularly, but it gives me. I feel I could say anything. I could just say anything as that character, and I feel, probably not true, but I feel like I could get away with saying anything. It just sort of allows me a little bit more of a degree of freedom with the audience as well, because they know it's a character, so we're sort of all part of the same game, really.
Yeah. You've done magic and memory stuff as Mr. Swallow. How do you pick the magic material that you do as Mr. Swallow?
It's a really good question, because there's definitely been times when I've made mistakes in terms of, I think I've probably chosen the wrong effects or routines. And I'm working on a new tour, which won't actually till next year, but I'm sort of starting to try bits and pieces out from it from September. And I'm toying with like a lie detector routine, a weighing cards routine, which is really just memorised that, but it's presented in a different way. Another rule book test type thing. But it's interesting, and actually, I think what I'm realising is that actually the simpler the premise, the better for Mr. Swallow. Partly because I personally find it allows the comedy room to breathe. Like I think the thing with the memorised deck, it's such a simple premise. It's so easy to kind of explain what I'm about to do, like what the challenge is, and it's also got that sweet spot which, we love in mentalism and in magic and mentalism, where it could just be believable, it's just about tangible, that it could be real, that people do buy into it, but also there's enough there to actually have real fun theatrically and really pace it in a particular way to really kind of eke as much fun out of it as possible. So I think things are the simplest, and a lie detector routine feels quite fun for me. I mean, I've written it, I'm yet to perform it. When I perform it to myself, it feels good. It'll be a different thing when I put it on stage and actually get however many people out in the audience. But, the idea that Mrs. Follican, I can tell whether you're lying by the sound of your voice. It's just a very simple premise. Like, it just feels like, okay, well, that feels simple. So, but, it's so tempting to be drawn to effects that I love to see. I mean, some of it is limited by my abilities.
Sure.
I think, I remember, because often I don't want to be worried about something that's particularly fiddly, so I can do a false shuffle. I can pass the false. I know I can get by with a false shuffle. So anything mental is useful for me because I can spend all my time learning a stack or learning the mathematics of something or learning. I find the mental stuff a lot. And I used to have my last show with like a number square thing, and it was actually it was a 3-digit number square, so it's slightly more convoluted in terms of the method. It's in a very old Paul Daniels magic books method that I remember getting out from Headingley Library when I was a kid, like in 1990 something, and I wrote it down. And it was that I remember using for the show, that method, and it does require doing quite a lot of mental arithmetic on the fly, but stuff like that you can kind of habitually practice, I kind of really love, as opposed to kind of finger flicking stuff where I know that I'll start to sweat and I'll start to lose control or shake. I don't want to ever have to do anything that might sort of scupper me that way. And I've been scuppered by electronics before, as has everyone. Not to say there isn't a place for electronics and stuff, but so I don't know. Occasionally, I'm just romanced by a particular effect, and I'm like, oh, I just love to do that. But often really it has to be simple. I remember doing a Houdini show with as Mr. Swallow, sort of doing a biopic about Houdini, and it naturally ended with the water tank. And the reason why I did that show, and it came off the back of doing the Dracula musical, was I just sort of thought, oh well, what would be the most fun next thing to do with Mr. Swallow? He's tried his hand at doing a musical, and then I just realised, like, if you put that character into something that feels quite genuinely terrifying, it's instantly funny, because it's like, well, why would he be like, what's his reaction going to be to that? So sometimes I try and make it come from character, because that makes it feel authentic, and it means that the kind of the journey of the routine, whether it's long or short, kind of feels kind of valid. It doesn't feel like I've got a character and I'm just somebody now doing any card at any number or pick up some balls. There has to be a sort of justification, I think, sort of behind it, even if it's small, and then it usually flies. But yeah, it's not an easy thing, actually. I thought it would be easy finding tricks for Mrs. Swallow, but it's not. I really have to kind of think whether it's worth it or not, whether I include it.
Well, the simplicity, not just of method, but of plot, is the old Vernon thing that if you can describe a trick in one sentence, then it's a good trick.
Completely. Well, it's like a good joke, confusion is, the sort of the enemy of comedy and magic, as soon as there's too many things. And, Mr. Swallow is such a distracted character, and often part of the joke is that he's got various things going on, and, he's sort of flitting between two different anecdotes or something like that. So actually the magic, or, perceived memory display, whatever, has to be the kind of so straightforward that everything else can hang off it.
Yeah. And do you work with any other magicians to help frame the stuff, or is it you in your head in your office and writing it on your own?
It's usually me in my head. I mean, I'm really lucky that I've got a lot of good friends who are magicians, and there are people who'll come and see those shows, like Andy Nyman, and I wasn't shy when I remember Andy coming to see Houdini. I just asked him a couple of things, just to just what did you think of this, or would you, and always his advice is just solid gold. on anything. And, partly because I think he's got such an immense background in live and theatre performance in himself and so on. So, but no, I try and, I don't know, I've always worked with a brilliant theatre director. He's a teacher at Lounger as well, actually. And what's great is he doesn't know anything about magic. He doesn't know anything about methods. He knows about theatre and he knows how to tell a good story. And he knows that magic is storytelling in the way that comedy is storytelling. And it's really good because we then attack things at completely different angles. So, of course, once he realises what a method is, we'll obviously have to allow for that, if there are certain things that have to happen at a certain time. But he can just be so open with what the beginning, middle, and end of something has to be, and he's not suddenly fretting about the kind of the stuff that magicians or we would kind of fret about in terms of routining or sleight of hand or whatever it might be that you might get caught up in and make sort of more of a meal out of, but it doesn't need to be. So he's just always such a breath of fresh air, and I've worked with him for 10 years now, and Matt Peavy he's called, he's brilliant, and so I guess Danny Hunt. Who's again a good friend who I've known for years from Northern Magic Circle days. He provided a lot of stuff for the Houdini show and for the Vanishing show I did, and I love Danny. And if I'm ever, especially when it's something quite big, and I remember I needed like a floating table and stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll get you one of those." Yeah, he's such a fountain of knowledge and such a lovely man as well. So I'll sometimes pick up the phone to Danny, but no, I try and. In fact, Chris Cox texted me the other day because he's guessing he sorted out tickets to see the show that he directed for the kids, and
Mario the Magician.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I went at the weekend. Have you been yet?
No, I've heard such wonderful things. I can't wait to see it. We're seeing it in August. Finn and Arthur, my two older boys, we're going to go and see it. So, and occasionally, Chris and I, if we meet up, if I'm ever in Bristol, he's in London or whatever, we'll have a good chinwag and just talk about the latest thing. And, I have so much respect for Chris. Again, he just puts all the time in and, he's just, audiences love him as well,
Absolutely. How different is it doing Mr. Swallow now after the success of Ted Lasso? Are people coming in because of Lasso? And do they know what they're letting themselves in for? Is there a tangible? This is a Lasso audience.
It is literally like you're reading my mind because I mean it is the question. It's the question I'm wrangling with at the moment because you're completely right. I mean, people are absolutely coming because of Ted Lasso and then being like, "What the hell is this? This is not Ted Lasso." And I kind of love that because it would have terrified me even maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but I think because I've got a bit more experience under my belt performing live, it sort of in a way feels like starting again. It feels like the first time I did a whole hour as Mr. Swallow. Previously I would do like a multi-character show where I played different characters in Mr. Swallow, would occasionally have the lion's share like the last 20 minutes, but it was always sort of split up with other things, whereas I think it was 2010, 2012, which was the first hour-long Mr. Swallow show at Edinburgh, and then at Soho Theatre, and you could tell audiences being like, "Oh, but no, I think it is this right now. Oh, it is. Oh, that's the joke. Oh, that's part of it. Right, he is meant to be irritating. Oh, yeah, okay." So you could. I remember. I mean, so I had opening acts on the last tour who do the first sort of the first half, and they would always very kindly say towards the end of that set, like, "Oh, who here has seen Mr. Swallow?" And, it wasn't, everyone. It was like 50, 60% of people. And, the rest are there pretty much because of Ted Lasso, exclusively because of Ted Lasso, which is obviously, as we know, a very particular show that is very far away from the world of Mr. Swallow. And, I did that show in New York at the Town Hall, and it was like a big venue. I mean, it was mad. It was like 1,200 people. None of which had seen Mr. Swallow before. So I was like, "Oh, God, I mean, this is going to be..." But, they just... you have to get them, and you have to work for it. But I quite like that. I mean, that's sometimes some of my favourite gigs when you realise, you walk out and you're like, "Oh, okay, there's enough people in here that you need to convince to make you really work for it." And then it's then a really good feeling that you kind of get to the end
when
of
you
the
win
gig
them.
And you feel that they're kind of there with you. And that, I love that. And, but that's what I meant at the start by saying I don't know if I'd have had quite the confidence to do that earlier on in my career. Like now, I sort of feel like, okay, well, I know this material, I know the character. Let's just work really hard and just find those pockets of people that you need to kind of take on a journey with you. But it's sort of a blessing and a curse, but I love it.
Now, you mentioned the Soho Theatre, and as I was looking, I presume is about the next tour,
And the new tour for Showpony,
which is called Showpony. Can you tell
Yeah.
us what can you tell us about that?
Well, it's just, I mean, it's another nonsense, Mrs. Sargent is just nonsense. I mean, so it's just more nonsense, really. But I think it's a little bit more. Um, there's an element of him, I think, sort of having a little bit of a poke at sort of identity shows, and I guess what I mean by that, it's more a beast that I have in telly. Not to get too heavy on a massive podcast, but as a person of color, I really struggle sometimes with the commissioning process. Pretty much all the TV shows that you see which showcase people of color, but we could be talking about any underrepresented group, but like say people of color are almost always identity shows. If you are brown skin, your TV show has to be about you being brown skin. If that is pretty much the norm. And all your peers get to write about being an air traffic controller or being in an orchestra or anything else. That if
You're the brown one.
that is what you're expected to be writing about.
Sure.
And I've never written about that. I never do. I've never referenced it ever. My sitcom Intelligence was about GCHQ, which is a workplace sitcom. It didn't matter that I was brown in it. It didn't matter. It's just a workplace
As it
sitcom.
shouldn't.
As it shouldn't, yeah. You think, and look, don't get me wrong. And first of all, that's not a dig at identity shows. They absolutely part of the picture, and that kind of authentic storytelling can have real potency, and of course there's a place for that, and of course that kind of representation is really important. But my thing is that I feel like that can't just be it, because a true example of equality will be when a person of colour, say, could just write about the same things that a white writer can write about, but that's just not the case in telly. And as evidenced by naming a show that is written and starring a person of colour or written by a person of colour that isn't about that. It's just they just don't get picked up, sadly. And it's not that the ideas or the talent pool don't exist. They're just not, the commissioners just don't want them for that. They have specific target audiences in mind for when they commission a person of colour to write something, and that's sadly the sort of state of affairs at the moment. So I'm kind of pushing back on that a little bit. It's quite fun doing it through Swallow, because it's like, well, what colour is Swallow? I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, also, it's based on a 40-year-old woman from when I was 14, it's none of it is relevant, but hopefully it's funny. So it's possibly a little bit more what's the word? Edgy is the wrong word, but a little bit more naughty than previous shows, in that I'm having a little pop at the industry, but I hope in a fun way and in an accessible way, because it's a very slight insular problem that to talk about TV industry, and quite a personal problem as well. So I have a lot of fun with it, I think, along the way. But again, it's just nonsense, and he does magic in it, he sings in it, there's all kinds of stuff kind of going on. But I quite like the title Showpony as well, because it just sort of sums up Mr. Swallow to a T, because he thinks he's good at stuff, but he's just not always. And so he is a showpony. And I don't know, there's an element of me thinking, Darren did Showman, and Mr. Swallow is a showpony. Yeah, that's so Darren's the real deal, and Swallow is just a poor imitator.
So when do the tickets go on sale for the tour, and how can people find out more information about it?
There is, I believe, a website being set up, which is nickmohammedlive.com, and if you sign up there, you can get access to it. But it's not until mostly next May. It's like 5 weeks worth of dates starting end of April. And
if you had to pick just one thing out of all of the things you do, comedy, acting, writing, magic, music, and that was the one thing you had to do forever, what would it be?
Live comedy, I think. Live comedy is, there's something about, I sort of want to say magic, but there are too many kind of, we know that it's possible to buy something on the internet, get it the next day, and perform it that night, and get probably quite a good reaction from it. And there's something in that makes me think, it's quite easy, isn't it? It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. doing magic well is really difficult, like really difficult, no matter how simple a method is or whatever the method is. But doing good magic performance is really difficult. But there's just something about doing good comedy performance that is genuinely challenging because there aren't any quick fixes, there aren't any kind of quick routes to it. I think you've either got naturally funny bones or you have to just work really, really, really hard at it. And I think there's something about it and about the immediacy of the response that just that you don't get in telly because it then goes off and it's edited and it takes ages to come out. So yeah, live comedy. Someone said to me a really nice thing. I forgot what it was now. It's something about the difference between comedy and magic. I'm going to really butcher the sentiment, but it was something about being able to make an audience. The difference between making an audience laugh and making an audience smile is that laugh is a reflex and smiling means that they like you. And there's something about kind of comedy that if you can really translate, and you can absolutely do it within magic. I think it's less common, but just find that real kind of connection with an audience through comedy is there's sort of like nothing quite like it. Like being able to sort of share something that you genuinely find funny. And for me, that's the teacher that used to make me laugh when I was 14 years old. To then share that with other people and for them to find it funny is like, that feels like a real nice thing. And so I think that's what I would always do. But I would miss magic, I'd miss music, and I'd try to find a way to sneak.
You're not allowed to miss it.
Sneak them in somehow.
Nick Mohammed, we are out of time, which is a dreadful shame. But I heard from your agent that you listen to the show, which is awfully nice of you. Do. So you probably know what happens now, which is our 4 quick-fire questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Favourite pizza topping?
Pepperoni all the way, and as much pepperoni as possible. So double pepperonis to get into Domino's.
Favourite movie?
Jurassic Park.
Favourite person or people who make music?
I really struggle with this because Prokofiev probably. I think. I mean, it's to single someone out. It would be classical, neoclassical. Probably, but like Prokofiev, Shostakovich, maybe Sibelius, but somewhere in that field. So, but I think probably Russian. So I think Prokofiev does it for me. There's an energy to his and a kind of a color to his music that is just so swashbuckling and romantic, and that's not romantic in terms of the genre of music, but just takes me to. Oh God! But then John Williams. I mean, Jesus, there's too many to name. But yeah, Prokofiev possibly.
That's locked in. That's yours. That's safe. No one's taking that away from you.
I'll stop speaking.
Finally, who would you rather fight? One massive Joshua J or 100 tiny Andys?
Oh, well, now you've switched it around. 100 tiny Andys. Definitely. I mean, one massive Josh would just be, formidable. I mean, that person would rule the planet, right? And they'd have like wiped out the dinosaurs. I think that they would reign supreme. So it has to be what is it? 100 tiny Andys?
100 tiny Andys.
And are they all attacking me at once, or just one at a time?
Yeah, and they've probably got strategy because Andy's he's a coder.
He's smart. Yeah, that's true. No, I could take him on. I'm happy with that. I'm really happy with that. Whenever I hear this question on previous episodes, not only have I always thought about what my answer would be, but also I just picture the scene, in the Jurassic Park, The Lost World, so the second Spielberg film. There's what are they called? The tiny ones, not Gallimimus, the tiny little green ones that then sort of get their own back on that guy, and they kind of like have a little swarm. I just always think of that. That scene.
Andy would do that. Andy would have
that's
revenge.
what Andy would do. Yeah, like attack us them. Yeah.
Nick Mohammed, thank you so much for your time. It's been an
absolute pleasure. And listen, I'd gladly come on at any point to talk more magic stuff because I love it, and I don't get to talk about it much.
Well, thank you very much. For tickets for the tour next year, go along to nickmohammedlive.com.
Indeed, yes.
The tickets will almost certainly be on sale when you are listening to this. Nick Mohammed, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you again for your time. It's been an absolute joy.
Likewise, thank you. Oh, that was wonderful.